We're going to get started because we are at the top of the hour. I do know that a lot of people have signed up and expressed tremendous interest, especially with everything that's going on with coronavirus, and people are working from home and people are quarantined and feeling isolated, etc. So actually, I don't even know how to turn off. I'm not going to deal with it right now. I had to turn off the dings as people join, like whatever. We'll just ignore it for now. I'll fix it for next time. If it even is an option in Zoom, I don't know. So for those of you who have not joined one of my virtual chats before, whether it's a virtual Salesforce Saturday or when it's not on a Saturday, it's really the same thing. It's just, I feel stupid calling it a virtual Salesforce Saturday when it's like on a Tuesday, but it really is the same thing. So for those of you who have never joined before, these are meant to be open mic, open forum. There is not a single PowerPoint. There is no hardcore agenda. The agenda really is talking about whatever it is that you guys want to talk about that relates to anything within the Salesforce ecosystem. So I'm thinking that especially with what's going on right now, a lot of people might want to talk about something that's on the periphery of the Salesforce ecosystem, which is like how to work remotely, how to be a Salesforce admin remotely, how to do business requirements gathering remotely, how to follow up with people about new Salesforce features that you just rolled out. But honestly, we could talk about any type of, whether it's a Salesforce product, a Salesforce feature, Salesforce events. I don't necessarily have the answer to everything. There are lots of topics I know absolutely nothing about. However, having done this for the past 12 plus years, having worked in the Salesforce ecosystem for the last 12 plus years, I do know a whole lot about Salesforce related stuff. But you throw certain questions at me that, first of all, anything that has to do with development, for example, use the word Apex in a sentence or Visual Force, and I have absolutely no answer whatsoever. But if you want to talk about whether it's, best practices on using leads or accounts and contacts, or how to use campaigns, or data quality, or adoption issues, or any type of Salesforce related project management issue, you can always bring up the topic of multi-select pick lists and watch my head explode. So we can talk about any of those things. Total open forum. So yes, you can keep your camera off if you want to. You're welcome to turn your camera on. You can keep yourself muted if you want to. This is meant to be interactive. And it's about you guys. It's not about what I want to talk about. It's about you guys and answering, responding to the kinds of things that you guys want to talk about. So what you see on my screen right now are just general topics to sort of give you ideas. Or not even limited to the things that I have listed right here on the screen. And by the way, you can see the next tab that I have open is my demo org, the org that I use for training and demo purposes in case we need to jump in and you guys ask me about how do you best practices on using a particular feature, I can jump in and show you. With that, I'll be quiet and then turn it to you guys. What do you guys want to talk about?
Okay, Dave, this is Kevin Caputo. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you, Kevin?
Not bad. I'd like to, you sent out an email to the user group leaders a week ago.
Yep.
I probably deleted it, but we're having to
I'm not insulted, I promise.
We have to go to virtual meetings as almost every user group does. And we're having a meeting next week. And I was hoping that you could either talk about virtual meetings or resend that email to me so that I could start looking through some of those links that you sent.
Yeah, so let's talk about this in a couple of different ways. So for those
Are you talking about a thermometer?
No. 1 second, let me try and see who was, if anyone has background noise, let me try and mute that person. Hang on.
Yeah.
I'll try and keep an eye on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I got it. So for those of you
working from home.
yeah, and it's all good. So by the way, side note, one time so this goes back many years ago, almost 20 years ago, I was working at NBC. And when I was at NBC, Kevin, I'm going to get to your question. I didn't forget. So I was working at NBC, Rockefeller Center, NBC headquarters. I was doing IT project management across all of NBC Global, and it was actually NBC, then later merged with Universal, so it was NBC Universal. And I was working from home. It was relatively a new experience for me working from home. I thought I was on mute. Someone was in the backyard. It was like summertime. Someone was in the backyard. We had an in-ground outdoor pool, and we had a whole lot of people there. And someone asked me a question. Someone shouted from the other side of the house, "Where's the blah, blah, blah?" And I screamed, "It's in the backyard by the pool." And someone on the phone said, "David, you're not on mute." I'm like, oh. So
We've all had it happen.
yes. Anyway, so Kevin, to answer your question. So first of all, I have to look myself to remember, because I sent a couple of different emails to user group leaders about user groups. So one is basically I was offering to speak virtually, to speak remotely for any user group and the truth is, it could be any of these topics. I believe in my email, I suggested a couple of different topics. Like a lot of times, user group leaders are struggle with how to translate, how to convert an in-person user group meetup to a virtual meetup, and there are many challenges to that. It's not an easy transition. It's a completely different skill set. It's a completely different way of running a meeting. It's very, very different. A lot of people are completely lost. And I'm constantly seeing on the all user group leaders chatter group, I'm seeing a lot of user group leaders who are completely struggling with it. So basically I offered up, like, sort of to make it easy for everyone. So long as I'm available, I'm happy to speak on one of a whole bunch of different topics. So if that makes it easy, just pick a date and time. I've got the Zoom account, so we could use my Zoom account. I can be either the only speaker or the primary speaker, like whatever, it doesn't matter. So I was offering that up. I also posted, I don't remember if it was an email or if I just posted it online, just general best practices around working remotely.
Yeah, so that's the one I was looking at.
Okay, so yeah, I will definitely find that. I think maybe I sent it as an email. I know I also like posted it on LinkedIn. I'll look for that and I'll send it to you.
Okay, thanks.
Kevin, can I jump in here just with a quick question? Are you looking for the logistics as to how to do this, or because we had to pivot our Salesforce Saturday last week from on Friday night or Thursday night we made the decision to pivot from in-person Salesforce Saturday to virtual, and so we did some scrambling, but it actually was fairly easy and it came out spectacularly because we were able to have guest appearances from such luminaries as Aaron McGriff and Justice Sakane and that whole gang from the East Coast who happened to have been together. But is that what you're looking for, or are you just looking for topics to discuss?
No, the topics, we have 6 speakers at our next Wednesday's meeting, and one of the topics is the highlights from the spring release or the summer release, whatever it's called. And so I have all these speakers all lined up because they've taken 2 or 3 features. And my concern more than anything else is that I'm worried about bandwidth. Everybody now works from home for how long, I don't know. And I noticed yesterday I was trying to work, our internet was all of a sudden causing all sorts of problems. And my wife said to me, she said, I bet you it's because of the load in the neighborhood. Everybody's trying to use the internet. And anyways, so my concern is if there's best practices around, having a 40, 50 people all of a sudden now on we're going to be using Google Hangout. But anyways, having issues around that, if people are having difficulty either connecting or staying connected or breaking up, like when you were speaking, Dave, just a few minutes ago, you were breaking up, and that's the type of thing I was trying to look for to see if there's suggestions around that.
So this actually holds true for anyone managing any Salesforce related project, by the way, not only for user group leaders. So Kevin, I just want to take the topic that you're bringing up and sort of broaden it a little bit.
Sure.
There's a couple of things to think about. So first of all, your own internet connection as the speaker or the host or the moderator of a particular meeting. I can honestly tell you that it was only about an hour ago that I decided, you know what, I have an Ethernet port in the room that I'm working from. And I have not connected this computer to an Ethernet port, I don't think ever. I've been working off of Wi-Fi, but I also have my kids, my daughter, my son-in-law, my wife, all using virtual conferencing right now. They're all using Zoom to keep up with school, with work, etc. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So for yourself, I would say go ahead and do that. For the people that you're meeting with, encourage them if it's possible. Sometimes a laptop doesn't even have an Ethernet port. Sometimes they don't have an Ethernet port readily available to them. The only Ethernet ports are in the basement. So if it's available, sort of gently remind people that be hardwired if that's possible. The other thing is sometimes there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. What I do as a general rule, all of my even business meetings that I'm having in Zoom, as a general rule, I record all of them. This way, if only one person or an attendee in the meeting, their internet connection is weak, so everyone else hears everyone consistently. So for example, a few minutes ago, Kevin, it might have been that, and I don't know, it might have been that you were the only one that had that internet glitch while others heard me consistently. By having the recording and then making the recording available, whoever was not able to participate, whoever got thrown off, whoever got distracted, they could still access the recording. So that's definitely a good practice, whether it's a user group meeting or a meeting of just 2 people in a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, that's one other thing I thought of is I was going to send out an email just before, a day before, to say, if you're working from home, which most people will be, you might want to consider rebooting your router before.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what I'm looking for, is practical ideas. Like, it was a good idea recording the meet. I would never have thought of that.
Yeah,
and
practically
hardwired.
every web-based video conferencing tool has it built into it, and it's insanely easy to use.
Yeah. Okay.
One other tip that I generally throw out there: if people are having problems with bandwidth on video, that they consider dropping off the video and just going to a phone connection.
Yes. 100%.
And that will help alleviate a lot of the problems that they might be experiencing if they've got bandwidth issues. And on another note, we now know that Mr. Giller has a stash of Purell, so we know whose house to rob when we rob.
It's actually not. It's not Purell. It's moisturizer, because washing my hands all the time is drying out my freaking hands. Good catch. I see there's a question in the chat. I'm trying to mind the chat also, and I see that in the chat, Diamond, and I don't know if Diamond is actually someone's name or that's the name of the business, whatever. Diamond is asking, what is the best way of reporting values from within a multi-pick list without having to develop individual reports for each value? This is one of the reasons why I hate multi-select pick lists. Multi-select pick lists, for those of you who have not heard me talk about this before, for those of you who are using multi-select pick lists anywhere in Salesforce, okay, it's actually your name, awesome. So one of the issues with multi-select pick lists is, if you're using a multi-select pick list, it is almost impossible to do filtering, grouping, sorting, reporting with the values that are in the multi-select pick list. It is a huge, huge problem. So what is my recommendation? My recommendation for it is, if in the multi-select pick list field, you have 10 values or less, 10 is really just a number I came up with as far as being like the threshold of manageable versus unmanageable. If you have 10 values or less, my recommendation is simply make them checkboxes on that object. So this way you can have on the page layout, you can have a section where you have those 10 different checkboxes, and someone can pick whichever ones are appropriate. If you have more than 10, because there are some multi-select pick lists that there are 50 options there, then my recommendation is make it a custom object, a child object that's related to the other object that you have the multi-select pick list on. And this way you can have as many values as you need to in that child record. Does that make sense, Diamond? You might be on mute. I don't know if you're talking.
Oh, sorry. I didn't think I could talk, but yes.
Yes, of course you can talk. This is meant to be interactive.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah. So To give you a bit of background, we are using a managed package for case management.
Oh my God.
And
Yes.
so we've designed we have these hierarchy of services. And so the multi-select is kind of the direction we went with when we only had under 10. And then now we have one that has, oh my God, 25 maybe. I suggested a checkbox. That was my solution to that. But unfortunately, because we started out using multi-select for service selection, it didn't make sense to do it for our other programs. I know very nonprofit specific, but I think our third-party implementer recommended something about on the back end to be able, and then there was someone here who also wanted me to use an operator that contains and that allows you to select multiple values. What we need to do is do counts. It's a counts that we need, like total.
So my question on that then is, can you export the data? Can you use Excel? Because you can use Excel text to columns to get that separated out. And that's the only way you're really going to be able to get those counts, because within Salesforce, creating a formula field to do it, you will hit all the limits that are out there.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah.
You're welcome.
And by the way, even
Thank
Linda's
you.
suggestion,
That's what
and I'm
we
saying this
assumed.
because I've done this, I've been there, I've had this painful experience. Even if you export the data and you do text to columns, so you're separating everything into separate columns, everything will be out of sync. Every row. So let's say you have, the field is favorite flavor of ice cream, and you'll have things like vanilla, chocolate fudge, chocolate swirl, chocolate peanut butter, and then you have all kinds of other options. And then one of them has vanilla and then chocolate, and the other one has vanilla and strawberry, and the other one has vanilla and peanut butter. Column B is going to have a different value for every. So trying to, even in Excel, even after you do that, you're going to have a disaster on your hands to try to make sense of the data. This is why I beg people to please, for yourself, don't use multi-select pick lists. It's a black hole that becomes really hard to get out of.
We were also using Crystal reports to try to do some coding to get our counts too.
So
Crystal isn't going to help you a lot. I mean, it might a little bit with the SQL that's available, but it's going to be ugly because you're going to need a lot of like statements, and probably you're going to have a query for every value with like statements around it. The developers are going to hate you.
And then just imagine if you have options, going back to the example that I was giving you before about favorite flavors of ice cream, the word chocolate could appear in many different values. So you can't even say if it contains
in a few different values. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you get to that level, you have to have that exact value and then have it within your percent signs in your SQL.
So this is an area where,
again, if it was over 25, what did you say?
To go to a custom object, that's like a sub-object.
But it was because we have a managed package. Okay, I'll absolutely relay that. Thank you so much.
No problem. Diamond, you are not alone in this. There are so many organizations, even very large organizations of well-known names and brands that are struggling with this. So you're not alone. It doesn't mean that anyone in your company is stupid or made a mistake. It's a very common mistake. But the thing is to take the appropriate action of resolving the issue instead of trying to implement workarounds to try to still make the multi-select pick list work. It's not, you're just going to be frustrated.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
What's the relative value of perhaps going with controlling and then dependent pick lists, just so you can kind of granular it down?
So that doesn't always work because I'm assuming from some of the words Diamond used in her narrative that she's working with a nonprofit where they have different programs. So imagine someone's filling out a form and here are the kinds of services that they might be interested in. So they're not necessarily going to be a hierarchy.
Yeah, the managed package doesn't allow us to do it's like a second or a third level of hierarchy, because we have a service, like a service type, and then we have a direct service, which is the multi-select pick list. And so we don't have one more level of hierarchy, which would actually be easier for us But because we don't have that extra layer of hierarchy, everything is in this long multi-select pick list. So yeah.
One word, ick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just keeping track of what's going on in the chat. Not that that takes priority over anything else, but someone asked about naming convention for roles and profiles. So let me tell you, I will start with what not to do. What I've seen incredibly commonly done, and it's pretty bad, and people have the best of intentions. So again, I'm not trying to call anyone stupid or anything, but what I've seen insanely common is people give in Salesforce, then when you look under the roles and when you look under profiles, you will see things named for people. So in other words, like under roles, it'll say things like Susan Jones, Frank Williams, Betty Smith. And under profiles, you'll see the same thing. Now, there are many, many reasons why that is a terrible idea. First of all, how scalable is that? How scalable is that when you have 500 employees? How scalable is that when you only have 10 employees and you figure, oh no, that's totally fine. But Sarah Jones wins the lotto, leaves the company, someone else joins, and now are you going to give them Sarah Jones's role and profile? No, you're going to say that's not appropriate. That was for Sarah Jones. And you're going down a rabbit hole that's just, again, hard to climb out of. Yeah, so when it comes to roles and profiles, here's my recommendation. Roles should mimic the org hierarchy, not naming people, but it should name sort of like the similar to, not exactly, but similar to like job title. So the roles should be things like CEO, COO, East Coast Sales, East Coast Consumer Sales, New York Regional Director, Florida Manager, Sales Leader. It should be things that look like the placeholders that go into an org hierarchy without naming the individuals. That's what the roles should do. The profiles, so just to clarify, roles, and generally speaking, roles will control what data people have access to see. Profiles will control what functionality people have access to in Salesforce. So the profiles, it's okay if the profiles are similarly named to the roles, because very often sales user will have certain apps and certain features and certain functionality that are different from marketing user or customer service user. But at the same time, it's possible that you have customer service manager versus customer service rep, that there's slightly different functionality that's appropriate for each of them. So that's my recommendation for naming roles and profiles. Roles and profiles should never, ever be named for people. Never.
We have something similar for where I work. I work with a government contract. I won't go into any details, but basically you have, in our case, we have roles which will describe locations. That's how they do it.
That's fine.
And that's going to be unique. Each location's unique, and you may have several of the similar profiles under each role or location.
Right.
And so a certain role will, a certain profile will have access to a lot of data that is seen by that location, and their privilege is going to be similar to somebody who's in a different location, but because the roles our territories are different, they won't see exactly the same thing. So it's a great way to pigeonhole people so that you don't overly pigeonhole them, and at the same time you give them enough space to do their job, but only their job and not somebody else's.
Right. Now, I agree 100%. Now, at the same time, we have Salesforce a couple of years ago released this concept, this functionality around permission sets. Permission sets basically allow you to, I'll call them exceptions, allow you to implement exceptions to the profiles by adding additional functionality that certain people can have. So I personally think that first of all, permission sets are freaking awesome. I'm willing to bet that over time, permission sets are going to replace profiles. But in the meantime, for the admins, it sort of makes it a little bit confusing of what should be controlled within the profile versus what should be controlled within the permission set. So my recommendation is the profile should have the general framework of what, let's say, salespeople can do versus customer service people should be able to do versus what executives should be able to do. And then the permission sets can allow you to get more granular of, oh, only these people should, let's say, have DocuSign. Only these people should be able to see, let's say, favorite flavor of ice cream on the contact object. So the permission sets will allow you to get a little bit more granular and a little bit more specific in terms of what you want to roll out to whom. Any thoughts or questions on any of that?
Comment on that. You're probably correct on the idea of profiles. I won't say going away, but minimizing, because with the new thing that they're bringing in, the permission set groups, that is another step towards that.
Replacing profiles.
Putting together various different permissions. That way it makes it easier for an admin to give the right people what they need and then have it all set up sort of, with column A, column B, et cetera.
Yeah.
So how does the hierarchy fit into all of that?
The hierarchy, hang on one second. I'm going to share on my screen over here. Let me get rid of, I have all these overlays on my screen.
It is truly, it's funny how Holland has something like
I don't know if that person is trying to speak.
So the reason I ask is our organization is pretty open, where a lot of people can access a lot of information across the organization. That means the coordinators need to access same things like a VP does. We had a hierarchy, we took it away, and I'm wondering if we should go back to something like that or if we should stick to profiles and roles.
Hang on one second. Okay, I think I muted the person who was distracting. So go ahead, Janet, could you repeat the question? I want to make sure I captured everything that you said.
Sure. So we, at one point, I'm new to the organization. They had everything set up, and so now I'm kind of trying to pick up the mess. But we had a hierarchy that was in place, and unfortunately they did exactly what you said not to do, and they put specific names on things. So we've since taken the hierarchy away. We have a pretty open organization where we can see, anyone can see anything across the organization. It's not ideal, but that's the structure of how we set up and back up. But my question is should we stick to roles and profiles and things along that line, or is the hierarchy something, and I guess I'm trying to understand how all three of those could fit together, or what is the best use case?
Okay, so the roles and profiles will help you organize a whole lot of things. The sharing rules is just one of them. So the visibility of data is just one element. Yes, it's true that the visibility, the sharing of who can see what, is predominantly controlled through the roles. I would still encourage you to implement roles, even if it's a rudimentary framework of something that's very, very simple and straightforward. Maybe it's only 4 or 5 roles that you have within the organization, and everyone falls into one of those roles, because at some point I am willing to bet that someone's going to say, oh, this summer intern that we just got should not be able to see certain data. How are you going to implement it? So at least you have a framework to start with. So I personally when it comes time for me to describe anything about roles and how roles are used, I completely personally love this splash screen that Salesforce always puts in our face every time we go to the roles area. When I actually need to configure roles, I completely hate it because I was like, get out of my way. I need to get to the next screen. But honestly, this is, think of this as it relates to roles. And this is exactly like what I was describing before, where the roles should replicate the hierarchy of the organization without being named after people. Does that answer your question, Janet?
Kind of, because as I look at this, like I see the CEO, the president on the top, and then, so in our organization, it goes from there to a VP, to a director, manager, coordinator. But in our organization, we it's all kind of flat, I guess, when it comes to access. So, you know, if I have a coordinator who supports our East region and needs to back up the VP from the West region, you know, what is the best way to kind of set that up per se? Because I want to go back to roles so that we can kind of get rid of to be quite honest, I think we have about 115 permission sets, which is just scary in and of itself. But I want to go back to that, but still be able to allow access across the organization.
You can still allow access across the entire organization. So the roles, the access within the organization are going to be determined based on here and sharing settings.
Okay.
So if you have like over here, instead of private, it's public read write, everyone will be able to see all accounts and then all contacts and all of the records associated with those.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about that.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah. Make sense?
Yes, it does. That makes, yeah, I mean, I've gone through, you know, a couple things and I understand the org-wide defaults. It's just that correlation between the roles and because we are operating as a flat organization when it comes to Salesforce. So, okay. Yep. That helps a lot. Thank you.
Okay. Beautiful. I'm having trouble keeping up with the chat because there's a lot going on there, which is a good thing. I'm not complaining.
Quick
anyone want to
question.
call out anything that might be in the chat or maybe not in the chat?
I have something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, what's up? The video's not working, but I'll ask anyway.
It's all right. I won't hold it against you.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I see lots of. I tried searching for a problem. We have a notification, email notification regarding the certification and key expiry date within a week. I really don't know. No one is taking ownership of this. No
Okay,
one
wait.
it's mine.
I believe you're talking about the single sign-on certification.
Yeah, it's not just single sign-on. Yeah, but yes, it's also connected apps and etc. and code.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's referring to that. Yeah.
I am completely with you that not only the automated emails that Salesforce sends out is incredibly confusing. The links within that email that it's supposed to provide additional information and resources on how to take action on it are insanely confusing.
Yeah, I'm 4 or 5 years here in Salesforce organizations. I know what it's talking about, and I found where it is,
but not how to fix it.
But no one in our organizations says can take ownership or say I did this. No one. So what I checked is Salesforce sometimes automatically makes something up when an app or something is sometimes it's made automatically with some packages. I don't know. It's very confusing.
I'm 100% with you. I don't have any solution. I've come to the conclusion for myself that it's so confusing, and because I'm working as a Salesforce consultant for so many different clients and the emails are so incredibly confusing that basically I just ignore it. And because usually what I find is that the issue, when I've done the research, the only conclusion I've come to is that the issue has to do with my own SSO to log into through the environment hub as a partner.
We don't have SSO. We don't have community.
I understand.
But you know what's surprising from this issue, and we'll have a good laugh about it, and we'll end it in here. I asked the Salesforce support, and they told me about the SSO and things that are already known. But they told me, check who created this, which user created it in the workbench. I went to the workbench. I'm a new, in our company, I'm a new user. I'm a user like a 6-month new user. I went to the workbench and found out that it was created a year ago by me.
I'm not surprised.
So how is a certificate created by my user a year ago? User created date, my created date in the user is just 5 months ago.
So if you're the only admin in your org, you own that certificate.
I'm not the only one.
But you might be the most recent one who looked at that certificate, therefore reassigned it to you.
No, it's created by, it's not the last modified by.
I understand. I understand. Also, if when they set up your account, if they replace the existing account with your name, that automatically says it to you. I don't know how many orgs do that, reuse licenses that way. It's stupid.
It is the dumbest thing and the most common. Linda, I am so with you. So,
No,
but that certificate, so Salesforce is automatic. It's not.
You might think that your user is new. If you go under the users and you actually look to see the created date, not the date that you got access.
Yeah, I know. The created date is, I could share my screen with you. My created date is 6 months ago, and the certificate was created by me 1 year ago. That's why it's getting a notification of experiment for now, because it was 1 year ago.
What I'll say, all I could say is this.
Were they on Lightning when you started?
What?
Was that org already on Lightning Experience when you started?
Yes.
It was, and they had a My Domain?
I don't know. I don't know when they shifted to My Domain. When I started 6 months ago, they were in Lightning and had My Domain.
Okay, so there are so many things that happen with that self-signed certificate that Salesforce automatically puts in. It's insane.
So how did I go back to the future and made made a certificate and then came back to the present and made and they made my my user.
You didn't.
All I can tell you is you're in good company. I don't think any of us, I don't think I have encountered
the weirdest
anyone
thing I have ever experienced
who could provide any insight on that expired.
But David, you are right. You are right. Most of this, just ignore it. In my experience, ignore it, and it'll be okay. But my boss and other staff members are really, you know, they don't know. They want proof that nothing will happen.
I don't think you can prove it till the day it blocks you from doing something.
I said. I told them, let's take it down in our full sandbox. And you know, test it on integrations and things like that, and see that nothing's happening.
Yeah,
that's the only advice I could say.
You could check your name credentials and see if any of them utilize the certificate. You can, like I said, if you have SSO, you can check there. You can check your connected apps, see if any of those listed.
The strange part is we don't have SSO. We don't have community.
Okay, so the other place to check then is named credentials, and if any of those use that certificate.
What did you say?
Named credentials is the next place to check to see if you have any in there and if they use that certificate.
I will check that.
I have 2 certs in mine that are used off our named credentials, and I have to replace them every year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll check that out. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. What else do you guys want to talk about?
Nothing.
Anything that I missed in the chat?
In chat, there's a lot. There's something about framing yourself if you're learning under an admin for a job search. Something about super badges versus certificates.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So basically, this is Sharon. Basically, ours is a nonprofit organization. I think I described this last time I was on with you.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the issue of having things come through Zapier off of like Eventbrite. And I was talking about how it was like a first name, last name, and then household. But when we first started, it was household, first name, last name. Is there best practices on how to change that account name without making it like a duplicate account? It's not quite a duplicate because it's got a different name.
Okay,
but when I changed it, when I swapped out, when I made the first name, last name first, and then household, now I've got 2 of the same one, but one says household, first name, last name. One says first name, last name, household. You understand what I'm talking about?
So let's confirm. Are we talking about using NPSP?
No. We tried to build this from the ground up, and we
Okay,
made
that's
horrible
what I
mistakes.
thought. So I didn't know if after our last conversation, between our last conversation and now, if maybe you've migrated over to NPSP. Okay, so
No, not yet.
all right, so I'm going to reframe the question. Tell me if I have it, if I understood correctly.
Okay.
So basically, without using NPSP, you've renamed the accounts to represent the household. So you'll have things like Fred and Wilma Flintstone, but and I guess the question is if there are two households of Fred and Wilma Flintstone, they look identical.
So basically, as I look at my when I look at my accounts, all right, basically it says one will say Fred and Wilma Flintstone household, the other one will say household Fred and Wilma Flintstone, because when it came across from Zapier, I don't know if you know what that is.
I know what Zapier is.
Okay, when it came across Zapier, we had it so that it would say household and their first name, last name. But when it came to running reports, I couldn't get accurate information that way. So I had them change it so it comes in first name, last name, and then it says household.
So they changed. Okay, so what I'm hearing then is.
But the ones that are already in there, I want to change.
It's the legacy data that needs to be changed, right?
Legacy data.
Okay. Here's what you do. You ready?
Yep, got my notes up.
So what you have to do is you have to pull a report. A regular Salesforce report. You're pulling a report, and basically you're pulling a report where the account name contains household.
Okay.
And all you really need is the following two fields appearing in that report. You need the Salesforce account ID, so the account ID for that account, and then you need the account name. 2 columns. That's all you need.
All right.
With me so far?
Yep.
Okay. So once you have that report, you do an export.
Okay.
You're opening it up now in Excel.
Open Excel, yep.
Once you have it in Excel, you can then go ahead and sort or filter to take out, I believe you said that the legacy record started with the word household, right?
Yeah.
So actually, let me reframe it, back it up.
In
Salesforce, you're doing a filter where you're saying not that the account name contains household, the account name starts with household.
Right.
So now you're having a smaller subset of accounts that are appearing. You're exporting it into Excel, and in Excel, basically you're going to bulk rename them in Excel.
Oh, okay.
Once you're done with that, you use Data Loader in order to update those account names. So the reason why you pulled in the account ID in your report when you exported it is so that when you're using Data Loader, the account ID is the unique identifier that Data Loader knows exactly which account am I changing the name for.
Okay.
That's it. It becomes very, very simple.
That Salesforce ID is unique, not duplicatable, required. And so by using that as your I'm going to say your standard, everything else can be adjusted to fit within that according to parameters that David's already laid out.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, everybody.
Yep, my pleasure.
Could I recommend the Excel connector? I had great experience instead of the data loader.
So some people absolutely love Excel connector. I personally have never used it. I know a lot of people have, and they completely love it.
Life-changing.
I will tell you that I've used Data Loader as the desktop app, both on a PC as well as a Mac, and that works very well. It's rudimentary, but incredibly powerful. What I completely love is dataloader.io, which is made by MuleSoft, ironically now owned by Salesforce. Dataloader.io is very similar to Data Loader, the desktop app. However, there are a couple of things that dataloader.io has that's way more powerful, way cooler than Data Loader, particularly where in dataloader.io, you can use anything, any value on any field as a unique identifier to update records. So that's incredibly powerful, especially the most common scenario is where we have something with, let's say, email addresses, and we feel that the email address is safe enough to use as a unique identifier to update data back in Salesforce. So we have anything, let's say people that attended a trade show, people that subscribe to a newsletter, whatever it is coming from some external source, we're getting it as a CSV file. So using dataloader.io, you can go ahead and do the match based on simply the email address, or you could do it as an upsert. If the email address exists, then all of a sudden go ahead and simply update that contact or lead record. If not, go ahead and create a new record. So dataloader.io gives some of that capability. I'm not at all trying to sell anyone on dataloader.io. Excel connector works great, so I'm not knocking it. Anyway,
that's risky, you know. Using without the ID.
100%. But a lot of times you don't have the ID, and a lot of times the business leader says, "I just don't care. Shove it into Salesforce. Are you done yet?"
Well, the main I think advantage of the Excel connector is you don't need a CSV file. You just do it on Excel.
Yes. By the way, I'll also call out, there's another tool. I'm going to pull it up on my screen and then I'm going to show it to you guys. There's another tool that is relatively new to the marketplace, and it's called InCycle. Hold on, I'm going to bring it up. And let me share it on my screen. So InCycle is another tool that not only allows for uploading data into Salesforce, but it also allows for tremendous flexibility in data cleansing from within Salesforce without ever touching Excel at all. So in other words, you go into InCycle, you log in InCycle, you log into your Salesforce account, your Salesforce org, and from within the let me just scroll my screen so you can see a little bit. So from within InCycle, you can go ahead and build a query. Let's say you're looking for duplicates. Let's say you're looking for all of the contacts that don't have a job title, all of the contacts where the first name is in all caps, and you just want to change the capitalization to initial caps. So all kinds of data normalization, data manipulation, you can all do it directly within InCycle without ever touching Excel. You could delete Excel from your computer, and you can do all this bulk data manipulation, as well as data uploading from within InCycle. So that's another tool I strongly encourage you to play around with, to explore. I personally love it.
How's the pricing?
Hold on, I'll show you the pricing.
You know, it's that's the first question my boss will ask.
Yep. So I would say just start with a free trial. Just play around with it. See what you think. You'll see yourself how easy. I think the free trial is 14 days. Hold on, let's take a look. 7 days. So I would say just start with the free. If once you have an instance, let's say you know of certain, let's say you want to normalize the job title everywhere where it says vice president. You want to change the words vice president to VP. So it says vice president of sales, vice president of operations. You just want to change it to VP of operations. Just go ahead and just try that kind of use case. Just do it as a free trial, and you'll see for yourself. Play around.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yep.
Will it allow you to change account ownership or contact ownership?
Yep.
When a sales rep leaves and you're trying to transition?
Yep. Now, by the way, you could also do that natively from within Salesforce. Let me show you since I have that open. So yes, you can absolutely use InCycle for that. But if you go over here and you just do a search for mass transfer records, you can also do that here natively from within Salesforce. So let's say you choose accounts, and then you can build the query right here. However, there are some limitations where Salesforce, using this feature of Salesforce, I'm trying to remember if the limit is 50 or 250, but there are definitely.
Oh, to do a mass, I know a mass delete, I think it's either one of those two. So is it the
same? So this is, So here we're not talking about deleting, we're talking about transferring. But yeah, so you can go ahead and do this. Again, I would tell you, if you have some records that you want to bulk reassign, go ahead and try InCycle. Just play around with it. 7-day free trial. You don't have to do anything afterwards.
Hey, David, this is Terry. The question that was before this about the households, would InCycle work on that?
Yes, absolutely. Wait, hang on one second. Let me think for a minute. With InCycle, it can do a find and replace. I don't know. Maybe.
Go check it out.
Because what we need to do in that use case, what we need to do is we need to take that word household and we need to append it to the end. And also we need to append with a space and the word household. So I honestly don't know. I would give it a try. It's worth a try.
Yep.
Yeah. And thank you, Joe, for clarifying. It's 250 limit on transferring records. All right, what else do you guys want to talk about? This is cool. We're a little bit all over the place, but that's exactly what these are meant for, and that's why I enjoy them.
Price book. Is there a way, simple way to share? You know, like sharing rules. If we have.
Tell me what you're trying to do, because I've never seen a use case where someone needs to share a price book.
Yeah, well, we need to move into private because we have different internal accounts, and we don't want one internal account to see other price book of another internal account. So we have to put it in private. We have to put it in private, you know, in the org wider default, what you say. Yeah, that's that. And so we need a way to share it to when they want to. And it's not, I guess it's not out of the box functionality in Salesforce.
No, but what I'm thinking, hold on, let me see who I need to put on mute over here. What I'm thinking is,
I think just in automation, it doesn't know
automation so that only certain users are assigned certain price books, or only only certain accounts.
Yeah, once it's created or edited, so share it with some rules. So I guess it's not out of the box. Flow or process.
I wouldn't think of it as sharing. I would think of it as auto assigning the price book. So selecting the price book is not an option. The price book is should automatically get. The approach that I would explore, I can't say with 100% certainty that this would work, but I think it will, that to automatically assign the price book based on certain attributes of the opportunity or the account or the user, or all of the above.
Mm-hmm. Meaning once it's private, to just play with an automation for placing the right owner.
No, it's automatically, so basically making it that the user through the user interface can't even choose the price book. The price book should automatically get chosen based on either attributes of the opportunity of the deal or the account.
And if they want to change it?
Give me a use case of why you want the user should be able to change the price book.
No, the manager wants another one another user to see the price book.
I've never seen a situation where users actually want to review the price book. So usually it's sort of the exact opposite, where I've seen where sales users, when they're creating an opportunity and they're adding products to the opportunity, they just want the price book to automatically be there. They're not looking to review the price book. They're looking to add products to the price book and then perhaps make adjustments to the prices that are on there at discounts.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a situation where like the users want to review the price book. So I'm a little confused.
Mm-hmm. I understand. Well, I need to dig in.
Okay.
Thanks.
I see that someone, Ellie, has a question about setting up partner communities. Ellie, go ahead, talk to me. What is it that you're trying to do? If you can, if you're still there, and if you're talking, you're on mute, because I don't hear you. Ellie B. Set up from the beginning. You'd like some tips. Okay, what I'll tell you is this, before you roll up your sleeves and do anything, my advice is going to be the exact same advice on really anything in Salesforce. Those of us who are excited, and most of us are excited to do anything in Salesforce, so we're excited to roll up our sleeves and start doing configuration, hold back, don't touch anything. first get a really good understanding of what the organization needs. What problem are we looking to solve? What features and functionality are we looking to set up? What are the use cases? How do we determine who should get access to this partner community? What features do we want to make available in the partner community? Who should have read or write access? Should they have access to create contacts and accounts? Should they be able to create opportunities? Should they be able to see all opportunities or only certain opportunities? Should they be able to work on cases? Should they be able to work on activities? Should they see all activities or only certain activities? So that's a lot of thinking that needs to happen before anyone sets up any community. And more often than not, people just get too excited, something shiny. We signed the deal for communities, go ahead and turn it on because the sales rep told us it's easy. It should take 5 minutes to turn it on. Of course it takes 5 minutes to turn it on, but turning it on the right way takes a little bit more thought.
Yes, it does.
Does that help? I guess you can't find the unmute button. It's all good. All right. Anyone else have any other topics that you guys want to talk about?
I would add to that play around with the partner communities. They have some great trailheads on that, and also get your own developer sandbox and play around with that before you do anything in a production environment, because it's this Salesforce version of being a carpenter. Measure twice, cut once. You can't
100%.
You can't unscrew up something once you've screwed it up.
Yeah. Once you unintentionally allow all partners to see everyone else's data, it becomes really hard to recover from that.
Your top, I think you connected. So hi, David. I just wanted to add something to what James said earlier.
Yeah.
So the big so far with Salesforce 5 years here, I think it's a great practice to test every application that you have on your partner community. So to test how many users can log in at a time, go through the whole testing phase, see the performance of your partner community, and then think about more configuration. Does more configuration come into place? Do you want to call a dashboard? Do you want to call a report or something like that? So I think testing it through various phases will really help out before, like, oof, I've launched my community. Hey, I have something good. And then think about missing all the data that we have and all this. I have another question.
Yes.
So I'm sorry I joined a little late. I was held up at my office,
It's
virtual.
all good. Won't hold it against you.
Yeah. So is there going to be a series of such webinars or trainings so that people get to know more understanding of what are we trying to accomplish by having this virtual meeting?
So I'll tell you. So basically, these sessions are really meant to allow people in the Salesforce ecosystem to connect with each other, a forum to be able to ask questions. Some people, or I should say a lot of people, are not even familiar with the existence of in-person Salesforce user groups. Those are groups that are geographically based, that get together in different geographic areas actually around the world to share best practices, advice, networking, etc. And so aside from, and by the way, I am a user group leader. I used to be a user group leader for the New York City user group. I'm now a user group leader for the Northern New Jersey user group.
Not recommended in these times.
I'm sorry?
Less recommended in these times.
Yes, 100%. Less recommended in these times. So I actually started doing these. I call them either virtual Salesforce Saturdays, to doing it on a Saturday. So if I'm available to do it on a Saturday evening, then I host it on a Saturday evening. But I'm also doing them aside from Saturday, doing it other days of the week. Can't really call it virtual Salesforce Saturday if it's on a Tuesday. So I'm just calling it a virtual Salesforce chat, where actually up until now, it's basically been completely open forum. You can talk about anything whatsoever. Some of the others that I started setting up for the future are more topic based. And I think for some people that sort of helps. It gives them a little bit of focus where, hey, if we're definitely going to be talking about, let's say, managing duplicates in Salesforce or handling Salesforce adoption issues, it would still be the same, in a way, the same format, but more structured in terms of a particular topic, really just as an open forum. forum for people to be able to ask questions. I don't necessarily have the answer to every question whatsoever, but to the extent that either I'm able to answer, I'm happy to answer. To whatever extent others who are participating have the answer and I don't, that's even better from my perspective, where people can help each other. So that's the goal of having these sessions. That's it.
That's great, David. Maybe I can speak a little bit. I have been working on a product called Salesforce Einstein Analytics, and I have, to some extent, developed a lot of knowledge in it. So I'm volunteering to conduct some sessions, demo sessions, training sessions on this platform, answer some questions if people are new to Einstein Analytics and Community Cloud.
Awesome. That's a great idea.
I've been a Salesforce administrator for 5 years, and now I'm trying to learn more of development. So if anyone who has demo sessions on development, I would love to jump in and join the session and learn from you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's awesome. So if anyone has Einstein Analytics questions, you know where to go. Karthik is here for us.
Could you write it in the chat so we could know what, summarize what you said?
Yeah, Karthik, you put your contact information in the chat, etc.
Sure. I'll put my LinkedIn link and stuff, maybe.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Karthik. That's awesome that you're offering to help. Anyone else? Anyone want to talk about anything in particular? Anything that I missed in the chat? There's been a whole lot going on in the chat, which is hard to keep up.
Just a question.
Yes.
I saw lots of companies, tech companies, are giving free tools in the, in the coronavirus. Like Salesforce is putting free the Quip tool.
Yeah.
That's great. What most common user case for? I know I saw what it is. We don't have one, but I did my free license on my dev org. What are the common uses of this Quip? The common, if you know, I don't know if you're using this, but what the common use cases for this?
So
except
Quip,
except chats and maybe documents and spreadsheets.
So think of Quip as sort of like
why not Google
Docs.
Why not Google Sheets?
So you can absolutely use Google Sheets. So that's what I was basically saying. Think of Quip as sort of like Google Docs. So when I say Google Docs, I really mean the Google Docs suite of tools. However, with Quip, you can also integrate it with Salesforce, or I should say, Quip is natively integrated with Salesforce. So you can connect things from Salesforce into Quip, or from Quip into Salesforce. You can have data flowing from Salesforce to populate something in Quip, whether it's like the equivalent of a word processing document or the equivalent of a spreadsheet of a table. You could also have the other way around, where the Quip document is referenced from within Salesforce.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So,
Yeah.
so it's basically, just like Google, but you say you could update and see data from this, from inside.
Yes. So with the Google Docs, with Google Sheets, it's really hard to sort of like merge in information from Salesforce into a Google Doc document or into a Google Sheet.
Any more nice tools they're offering for the, like I saw Zoom or other tools?
Not that I'm aware of. I saw that they're offering Health Cloud. I'm not really sure how.
I don't know what I don't know. We're not using ones. No.
Yeah.
David, I have a question. If you want to loop back over to Quip when you finish that.
Yeah, by all means.
So this is Terry again. On Quip, on the access and what sheets you've used and what sheets you have access to and stuff like that. I've only seen it from a user perspective, and I've gotten confused when there've been a couple of different email addresses as we've used it for like Dreamforce or something like that. And so I get kind of confused there, seeing them come through and then trying to figure out, okay, how do I get back to that one? What are some tips that people have for that aspect, if that makes any sense at all?
It makes complete sense. So what I'll tell you is I'm trying to carefully choose my words. I've been using Quip for a bunch of years now. Actually, since Quip came under the Salesforce umbrella, I have been using Quip either because I initiated a Quip document or a Quip folder to collaborate with others using Quip, or I've been invited to join or forced to rely upon documentation or folders in Quip that others created and shared with me. So I've been using Quip in a bunch of different ways for the last several years. I will agree with you that there are a lot of things in Quip that are confusing, including navigation, including how to easily find a particular document or a particular spot in Quip. I'll tell you that what I typically do is in Quip, there's a way to save. I would pull up my Quip now, however, there's documentation and content that I have in there that's not meant to be shared within this forum. So that's the only reason why I'm not pulling it up. So within Quip, there is the feature to save things as favorites. So in other words, it's sort of like a shortcut that you can easily access it. The other thing that I do is the most rudimentary and simplest, which is saving it as a favorite in the browser. Those are the different ways that I quickly can go back to a particular Quip document.
Okay, yeah, I found the save as a favorite, and that worked for the short period. Like if I try to go back to something now, like a few weeks ago, I had some problems. So I'll just play with that more. So thanks.
And Terry, I agree with you also. There was another issue that you brought up, and I did not mean to ignore that, which is you could have under multiple access to different Quip documents under multiple email addresses. And yes, that is confusing too. Because then you need to know which, because you might have saved it as a favorite, but under which email address was I logged in order to even see that favorite item. So yes, it's confusing. Quip is constantly evolving, just like everything else on the Salesforce platform. Salesforce, my understanding is that Salesforce is putting a lot of time and a lot of resources into advancing the functionality that is available in Quip. So it's constantly changing, it's constantly evolving. Yeah.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Just take a quick second and ask you to put on your seer hat to see into the future. What do you think are the chances that Salesforce is going to acquire something like a Zoom or a Slack or whatever to provide that sort of video chat capability? Because I can see that being their next collaborative tool that they're going to try to either make or acquire.
That's a good question. I don't know. I would say I don't know only because some of the acquisitions that Salesforce has made really surprised me. Like, what? For example, let's rewind, it's probably 7-8 years now, when Salesforce purchased both ExactTarget as well as Pardot. I was like, I don't really get that. Especially at the time, there were open APIs with Marketo and HubSpot, with really any marketing automation tool. There were some beautifully elegant, seamless APIs that all of these different tools worked really seamlessly with Salesforce, and all of a sudden Salesforce was competing with them. So let's rewind in time, approximately 2008 at Dreamforce, Marketo was probably the biggest vendor that had the most space of all of the vendors of all of the booths. Marketo was giving out these big blankets to every Dreamforce attendee. And all of a sudden, Salesforce announces that they purchased two competitors, two small little, in the grand scheme of things, small little unknown competitors to Marketo of ExactTarget and Pardot, and then turned off those APIs, and Marketo and HubSpot totally disappeared from the landscape, from the Salesforce landscape. Yeah, so I've been surprised before. So I would think if it were me, if it were my choice to make, I don't know if I would bother purchasing one of those companies. I would simply encourage a seamless integration with one or more of those companies. That's what I do.
They're
It's a
trying to do something.
strategy.
They're trying to do something like that with Slack, but where that goes.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a strategy, no?
No.
Required. Management tools like Trello or Jira as a app exchange. What did you? What can you recommend?
The one that we're trying to help.
Wait, say that again.
Just like a Jira or you know, Trello, a management tool. As an app exchange.
I'll tell you what I recommend. Okay, I love this question. It's a little bit on the periphery of Salesforce, but it's all good because it's on the project management side.
Salesforce itself, like an app exchange.
If we're I personally am a huge fan of Jira. Yes, there are many things that you can complain about Jira. A lot of people abuse it, just like Excel. I've used Trello. Trello is absolutely awesome for smaller scale items. I would say Trello is great. For more robust functionality and for larger scale, for like enterprise type organizations, I think Jira makes the most sense. I totally love Jira.
From within the Salesforce itself, like an app exchange?
I don't think it makes sense to, I personally think it does not make sense to try to manage the kinds of like tickets of that type. We're talking like technical development issues. If it's more of like a customer service issue where it's like a Salesforce case, you could just use native cases and you have the status on cases and you're totally good. But if we're talking
our internal cases, with our dev and implementation and teams,
you could totally use cases. You could totally use cases. 100% you can use cases. However, Jira has all kinds of additional functionality that goes way above and beyond what Salesforce has. And if you're looking to have that type of functionality, Jira is better suited for it.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on what you need, just using native Salesforce cases is incredibly powerful. And that can be used for internal.
Maybe an app exchange. Maybe an app exchange or something like that.
What are you suggesting on the App Exchange? I don't understand.
There are lots of management tools in App Exchange. Not that you could, and that way you'll be from Salesforce itself.
Right, but you can it all depends on what the needs are within the organization. If the needs within the organization
for internal cases.
For internal cases, you could just use cases.
Yeah, but okay.
Just use cases. You can have a record type. You can have just a type, a drop-down field for just type, and internal or external. Period. Simple.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I strongly recommend starting with cases. In many organizations, they've been using Jira for things that have nothing to do with Salesforce. So the IT team is using Jira already. They're using Jira from a release management for, again, things that have nothing to do with Salesforce whatsoever. So if you're already using Jira, Jira is incredibly powerful. It's a wonderful tool. By all means, use Jira if that makes sense. If you're using Salesforce and now you don't have anything like Jira, it's totally cool. You can absolutely use native Salesforce cases functionality to track your internal cases. You can even use internal Salesforce functionality to track in large enterprise organizations. I've set this up myself for clients where an employee has an issue with a laptop, with an internet connection. Their mouse is broken. They need the new version of Office installed on their computer. So for internal cases of that type as well, in addition to end users saying, hey, could you introduce the following functionality within Salesforce? So custom configuration requests from within Salesforce can all be done internally within cases. So it all depends on what it is that you're trying to do.
Thank you.
Yep, my pleasure. Anyone else? Other questions? Other topics you want to talk about?
Hi, David.
Let me pull up this thing to help you guys. Anyone want to talk about struggles of working remotely?
Hello. Am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, just to add on that, I think if it's to do with the project management and you are looking for a tool that is on the App Exchange, so some time back I was working on Agile Accelerator, and it was good for capturing stories and things like that. So I've just posted it in the chat.
Yep, Agile
look.
Accelerator. Yep.
Thanks, I take a look.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's very basic, and you can customize it as much as you want.
Yeah. Look, what I'll say is anytime someone asks me about, hey, I found this really cool tool, what do you think? It all depends. What are you trying to solve for? You know, imagine I turn to you and I say, I found this really cool gadget. And what do you think of it? Oh, well, how do you plan on using it? It depends what you plan on doing with it. Like, do you plan on using it for a paperweight? Do you plan on using it to help organize your information? Are you planning on using it to get from one place to another more efficiently? Are you planning on using it to save more time? Like, what do you plan on using it for? That will help give insight on whether or not it makes sense to use one gadget or app over another. What else do you guys want to talk about?
Eli's got a thing here dealing with the automation on the NPSP and soft credits. You might want to, if you can.
Ellie, you want to elaborate a little bit? If you can unmute yourself. And if you're talking, we don't hear you. Or maybe Ellie got distracted.
He's putting it
He's
down there.
saying his mic is not working.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, something we touched on earlier is a very, very common issue that relates to what happens when a user leaves an organization and the concept of deleting a user. Let's talk about that for a little bit. So very often what happens is you have employee number one who leaves the organization, employee number two comes in, and first of all, what people try to do is they look on that user record for employee number one, they look for the button that says delete, and there's nowhere to delete that user, and that's true. It's not supposed to be a feature called delete. You need to deactivate the user. Deactivating the user does a couple of things. Deactivating the user means that that person is no longer occupying a license. So let's say you've purchased X number of licenses. You now just freed up one license that can be assigned to someone else. That's the first thing that it does. The second thing that it does is it prevents that person from being able to log in. So just by deactivating the user, that person is not able to log in anymore in order to see any of the information that they were able to see previously in Salesforce. Now, what happens when employee number two comes on, the most common huge mistake that people make is they go ahead to employee number one who left the organization and they simply change the name, the first name, the last name, the email address, the job title of that employee, the employee who left, to make it represent the new employee who came on board. Huge mistake. If you have seen that, or if someone suggests that, please stop them in their tracks. Don't let them do that. Why? Because what that will do is that will automatically update every single, well, technically it's not updating anything. It will represent in Salesforce all of the activities, all of the records, everything that prior employee did. It will appear as if the brand new employee did it years before they ever knew that your company existed, years before they were ever an employee of your company. So that employee would log in the first time and they're automatically going to see all of that. Let's say they go to a report showing a pipeline report. They're going to see all of the won deals and lost deals that their predecessor had as if it was theirs. It's not going, you're going to lose all of that legacy data of what that prior employee did. If that person looks at all of the activities that they closed, it's going to appear that they have all kinds of activities, whatever that prior employee did, it's going to look as if they did it. So by repurposing that user, you are polluting your Salesforce data to the point of no return, honestly. So what you really need to do is as follows. You simply, for employee number one leaves the company. What you do is you simply deactivate the user. Employee number 2 comes on board. All you need to do is go ahead and create a new user. Don't be worried about the fact that that legacy user still appears under the users section in Salesforce. You can create a list view. Actually, there is by default a list view in the users section of Salesforce to show only active users. So don't worry about that. You simply create a brand new user for the new employee, so with their first name, their last name, etc. And then based on whatever records they need to inherit from the prior employee, so maybe they're inheriting all of their open opportunities, maybe they're inheriting all of their open cases, maybe they're inheriting all of their open activities. That is still, then you go ahead and you transfer those records over, but you're still not polluting the database by having it appear as if they did all of the work that their predecessor did. Huge, huge mistake. Please don't let that happen within your organization.
One other little aspect, this happens in our instance. There are some paid licenses, which even if that person's deactivated, that license, if he's still got it, he or she, they're still being, the company's still being charged for that license.
Oh, are you talking about third-party apps?
Third-party apps mostly.
Yeah.
So you have to go into that user record and then remove those third-party paid apps so that the licenses will reflect the proper number of people actually using that app. Then if the new user comes in, you can just reassign that license to the new user. But it's still a lot cleaner than what you said people who've done before, which is dumb.
Yeah, it's yeah. I think people, they're just not thinking it through, and a lot of times it will come to me after the fact where someone will say, yeah, so a month ago or 3 months ago, we had this new employee come on board, and they're struggling because they have, how do we get rid of all of the crap that they currently have access to? Yeah, how do we undo all of the things you did over the last month? So it becomes a real struggle. Let's go back to Ellie's question. So what I'm going to do to respond to Ellie, so Ellie has a question for those of you who don't see it in the chat. He's asking about about NPSP and soft credits. Let me go ahead and talk to that. And in order to talk to that, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to log into a nonprofit org. Oh man, Salesforce just sent me a confirmation verification code email, which of course I need to, hang on, verify your identity. Let me cut and paste this. So I'm going to log into a nonprofit org. Before I jump in to answer Ellie's question, let me sort of bring everyone on the same page, give you a high level overview of what's going on in the nonprofit org. So all of you should be able to see, well, right now it's a blank screen. So here's my nonprofit org, or I should say, it's a demo org. All of the data here that you see is completely fake. It's what I use for demo or training purposes when it's a nonprofit. And for nonprofits, I'm getting specifically in the direction of where Ellie's question is. In nonprofits, we have a scenario when it comes to fundraising. So let's say I feel fond, I have a fond affiliation with a particular nonprofit, the American Heart Association. And although I don't have any money to donate to the American Heart Association, I want to help them with fundraising. So I want to reach out to my friends, colleagues, neighbors, etc., to solicit from them, hey, do me a favor, what you should really donate to this important cause. The American Heart Association does amazing work. I encourage you to write a check to the American Heart Association.
No.
So that's a very common use case that I think many of you can do too. So in Salesforce,
last night it didn't have.
hang on one second, let me try to
No, curries.
over here. Okay, I think I took care of it. So let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to look at, and I'm pulling up any random opportunity. So the donations in Salesforce are tracked in the form of opportunities, and we all actually have opportunity record types. So let's rewind a little bit. If I go here to create a brand new opportunity, this is all what I'm showing you is all out of the box NPSP, Nonprofit Success Pack additional features for nonprofits. So aside from donations, because usually donations is the only thing people think of when it comes to nonprofits, aside from donations, opportunities could also be other things. It could be a grant that the nonprofit is getting. It could be an in-kind gift where someone's saying, hey, I can't write you a check, but I can give you all of these laptops. I can give you these bags of clothing. I can give you all this furniture. So that would be an in-kind gift. Matching gift is when, let's say, an employer, let's say I work for Home Depot, I'm making a donation of $1,000 to the American Heart Association. Home Depot is going to do a matching gift. They're also going to give $1,000. So that's what a matching gift is. And then we have memberships. Memberships like, let's say, a museum or a YMCA that has an annual membership, or let's say the American Automobile Association, the AAA, there's an annual membership. It's a nonprofit, but they also have a membership, so they're tracking it that way. So let's go back to this. This is a donation record over here. And generally speaking, everything looks pretty much the same like any other opportunity anywhere else in Salesforce. However, let's go back to that use case that I talked about before, where we have different people who are we want to give credit to, we want to show that someone else had influence in the creation of this opportunity. Someone else helped solicit from the donor that they should go ahead and reach into their pocket, write a check to make this donation. And that's what we have in Salesforce under the functionality around soft credits. You can see over here, and on this particular record, there are no soft credits associated with it. So if I'm going to go here under partial soft credits, I can see I can create new. And let's go ahead and I'm going to choose any random contact. So here I'm choosing Bert Gross. And I can also choose what, how much, maybe Bert and someone else were both associated to this particular, both of them, or maybe multiple people helped influence this opportunity, this donation from coming in. So I can go ahead and I can choose, if I really wanted to, how much to give as a soft credit to Bert. I could also just go ahead and leave it blank. You can see also over here, you can see that there's a role name, because when we're doing soliciting, there could be many different people who are involved, and those people have different levels of influence. They have different roles. They're doing different things associated to that particular donation coming in. For now, I'm just going to leave both of those blank. And what you're going to see over here, as soon as I hit save, why on earth is it taking so long? So as soon as I hit save, you can see over here that there's, and I need to update the list views over here so it actually shows Bert's name as well. But if I go into this record, I could see this is the record that I just created. Now let's go full circle. I'm clicking on Bert, and now under Bert's record, I can see that particular donation. Hold on one second. Let's go ahead and confirm. What was the name of that? Yeah, the donation that I just modified is the $100,000 donation February 21st, 2015. And I can see that over here, that is affiliated with Bert because I just made that connection. And by also making that connection, we can see that Bert also now appears under contact roles, because he is playing some role as it relates to this particular opportunity coming in. Anyone have any questions on that? All right. Now, so I guess let's get to a little bit deeper into the question that Ellie had. So Ellie, did you have, or maybe everything that I just showed you now answers the question? I'm not exactly sure what question you had, because what you put in the chat is just generally, you wanted to know about automation associated with soft credits. Okay, it does. Awesome. Since I'm in the nonprofit, anyone have any other questions about nonprofits as it relates to Salesforce? There's a lot of really cool functionality that nonprofits get.
Just a general question.
Yeah.
If I'm, you know, I don't know, won't say I'm, professional, but have experience in Salesforce and want, like a pro bono to volunteer in nonprofits, where can I find organizations that need help, want help?
That's a great question. Where are you located?
Israel.
You're located in Israel. Message me.
But you know, if it's online, it's okay. You know.
No. I totally understand. But also, just from a time zone perspective, let's put it this way: when it comes to understanding the business requirements, understanding the issues, or for you to show them, here's what I just fixed for you, it makes sense to be in a similar time zone, in a closer time zone. Yes, you can absolutely, just like now, I'm on East Coast time. I'm in the New York area. You're in Israel. That's totally cool. It can work.
Actually, when I'm working in the morning, it'll be better for me to show and work evenings.
Okay. So what you could do is this. What I would say is there are many nonprofits that absolutely need help. What you can do is you can simply post on LinkedIn. You could also post on Facebook. You could post on Twitter. And I promise you're going to have nonprofits reaching out to you. The reason why I was suggesting where you are is because usually especially with nonprofits, usually the people who are working there are not so technical. Usually they want to be able to meet with someone. They feel better if you're somewhat geographically closer to them. From a time zone perspective, it makes it a little bit easier. Usually they need a little bit more hand-holding, and they're not necessarily like the Googles of the world, where they're comfortable with technology. Very often they're still using clipboards and carbon paper, triplicate carbon paper to manage things, and they're trying to use Salesforce.
Excel.
A lot of times they're using Excel also, but
I saw this once. Very, very interesting.
Yeah. So what I would say is just post on any social media, and I guarantee that you're going to come across stuff. If you want, I can put you in touch with, I'm very familiar with a lot of people in the Salesforce community within Israel. I don't know if you know Tomer Tveria. He's the user group.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So I
Small
think
country
as well. Yes, a lot of nonprofits need a lot of help. So it's not going to be hard to find that. Yeah.
Great. Well, what I was referring to, I guess I understand what you're saying. Just a lot of people from Salesforce that are communicating with me in the social media, not in Israel, want hands-on experience to get inside the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And I told them that this is a great idea, to get hands-on by volunteering, but we didn't find any good platforms. If they saw someone from India or someone from Australia or someone from New York, and we didn't find good places we could find these nonprofits that use Salesforce.
So what I'll tell you is this: if you just do a Google search, or actually, hold on, let me show it to you.
It's not the main problem is not finding the nonprofits, but the nonprofits that use Salesforce in a good manner that they could take you as a hands-on experience.
Yeah. So Salesforce actually has on their website, which I'm looking for right now, and then I'll share it, nonprofits that they showcase, nonprofits that are actually using Salesforce. Which basically gives you a list of here are all the nonprofits that you can reach out to all over the world.
Great.
However, there are a lot of inherent issues with the use case that you're describing. And it is a very, very common recommendation that a lot of people give to others. Hey, you want to learn Salesforce hands-on? Why don't you go to a nonprofit and volunteer over there? My question to you is this: how comfortable would all of us be if, as we're getting on the airplane, what we find out is that the person who's flying the airplane today for our flight is someone who's looking to get hands-on experience. They read a lot. They watched a lot of YouTube. They've passed a lot of exams, but they've never sat in the cockpit with passengers in the plane. But they need to learn.
I'll be sincere with you. You're right. You're exactly right. But the other cases, when I was looking for my first job, everyone wanted experience. Well, how could I get experience if no one is willing to give me the hands-on experience, even voluntarily?
This is a very, very common question. So let's go to the analogy. Let's keep with the analogy that I gave you a moment ago of someone who's trying to get experience as a pilot. What do you mean if I can't fly the plane? How on earth am I supposed to get a job as a pilot? You tell me. What does someone do? They go to flying school. They get certification. What do you think? How do you think they get their first job? Usually they get their first job working under the supervision of a pilot. Their job title is not pilot, it's maybe assistant pilot.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's the same thing for a lifeguard. It's the same thing for an accountant. It's the same thing for a dentist. We're under this misguided, and Salesforce is partially responsible for this, because Salesforce, we're under this misguided approach of entitlement that just because I got certification, just because I finished all this content on Trailhead, therefore I can fly the plane. Therefore I should be able to get a job flying the plane. That's not true. Is it true for a lifeguard or a babysitter? Would you let someone babysit your children if all they've ever done is they've watched a lot, they've taken exams, many exams, watched YouTube and read a lot of books about how to do babysitting? No. If you want to learn how to be a babysitter, first you have to work with someone who has experience as a babysitter to learn to understand what it's like to be a babysitter. That's how you get the real experience.
I understand. True.
This is a very, very common issue. And again, I think that the marketing that Salesforce is doing with regard to Trailhead is feeding into this sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That and the certification.
Yes. There's no magic. You know what? I'm an attorney. I graduated law school. I passed the bar in New York, in New Jersey, and in Washington, D.C. Does that mean that law firms were knocking on my door in order to offer me jobs? Absolutely not. I had to actually work as an intern, work as a paralegal, work under the supervision of another attorney. Did they let me just go in front of a judge to argue cases? No. I had to work under the supervision of people with more experience in order to learn what it meant to actually be an attorney. Getting the certification, passing the exams, that was the first step. That was it. So it's the same in every single industry.
Okay. Right on spot.
Thank you. I get this question all the time. I see it all the time. By the way, I get it on Instagram. People are DMing me many, many times a day, asking the exact same question. I know it's a very common issue, and I know that what I'm saying really does fly in the face of what this big company, Salesforce, is messaging out there.
Yeah, get it.
All right, what else do you guys want to talk about?
Hey, David.
Yes.
I'm from Morocco.
Hello from Morocco.
Yes.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. I have a question.
Sure.
Do you have any idea to realize with Salesforce for having a positive social impact or to respond to a social problem and create a positive future?
I can think of countless examples. Yes.
Yes. Can you give me some idea?
Yes. So we actually touched on this a little while ago with regard to nonprofits. So I'm a huge technology geek. I'm a huge Salesforce geek. I love the platform. I love the functionality. I love the company. Working with nonprofits adds a whole other dimension. I work with a lot of clients. So I'm a Salesforce consulting partner. My business, basically what we do is we help other companies to use Salesforce. I work with a lot of companies in the for-profit industry, of many, many different industries, financial services and education and healthcare and home healthcare, manufacturing, etc. I also work with a lot of nonprofits. And working with nonprofits adds an entirely new dimension of excitement and enjoyment, of fulfillment for me, because what I'm able to do is take the best practices and to take the out-of-the-box native functionality and to help those nonprofits, whatever it is that they're doing. And so many nonprofits are helping the homeless. Many nonprofits are providing a better education for people. Many nonprofits are working with people at risk, people on the fringes of society. I'm working with nonprofits that are collecting money from one country and turning it into bread that they're giving out to poor people in another country. And working with nonprofits that are collecting clothing from people in one country and distributing it to the people who can't afford clothing in another country. And for me, the thrill that I get with working with those companies is I'm able to allow them to track the donations that they're getting in, whether those donations are coming in, like I showed you before on the screen, whether those donations are coming in the form of a check, whether those donations are coming in the form of bags of clothing, and they're tracking who it's coming in from, who is the influencer in giving it, and how that's being distributed, in what towns and what cities and how frequently they're distributing them. So to answer the question of how Salesforce is having a positive social impact, it's in countless different ways, just from the nonprofit. Now, by the way, we could also look at the for-profit organizations. It's a little bit more of a struggle of a twist in order to find like how the, and I can tell you those too, because like if I'm working with organizations that are, let's say, in the home healthcare system, and we're tracking of, let's say someone calls in and they say, my mother is dealing with Alzheimer's, she's diabetic, she's struggling, she has trouble to shower, she has trouble feeding herself, and they need a nurse, I need physical therapists, they need occupational therapists to come to her home once or twice a week to help her out. And the tracking of who the primary care physicians are, who the patient is, who the household members are, what types of services that person needs. These organizations, even if they're for-profits, these organizations are getting them on the appropriate healthcare system so to be able to pay for those services and delivering those services to those people, assigning the right people and the right schedules to track. Are these people actually going out to visit them? What are the diagnoses? What is the progress of how well they're doing? So I'm actually seeing this all over the place. And this is part of what I love about what I do. Does that answer the question?
Thank you.
Yep, my pleasure. Anything else? What else do you guys want to talk about? You guys want to talk about data quality? Want to talk about end user adoption? Want to talk about end user training?
I have a question. Have you worked with the DocuSign integration?
Yes.
Okay, so we just signed on with DocuSign Agreement Cloud. So we have document generation and are able to send it from Salesforce. We have single sign-on. So my question is we have a custom object that will create a onboarding request. And then we'll also create, so on that specific object, we'll create 2 statements of work. The first one will be the consultant, and that will be the person. So that's fine if it stays on the onboarding request. The second one will be a client statement of work.
Yep.
What is the best way to get that to appear on the account object, if that's even possible? Because what we're trying to do now is all of our documents are stored on SharePoint. And so we're trying to centralize that, and it's easier if we're looking for a document to go to the account than digging through an onboarding request. Does that make sense?
I'm trying to follow along. So the onboarding request
is the custom object.
Is not associated to an opportunity?
Not right now. It's pulling in information from the opportunity. So it is,
Is it linked to the opportunity?
I think there's a lookup field. So we have a lookup to the opportunity. We have a lookup to specific objects in Kimball, which is another piece that we're using.
Okay, I'm not familiar with Kimball, so I have no idea what that is. But
that's okay. It's German. But it's a PSA. But so we have this piece, and it's the onboarding request is a new employee. So this new employee is going to come on board. They're going to need a statement of work. Here's their start date, their bill rates, their orientation dates, all that stuff. So it's pulling everything in there, and it's pulling the account from the Kimball object, but it's not directly linked to it. So I guess what I'm trying to do is, like, right now I have the whole DocuSign piece showing up in the bottom right-hand corner, so I can see the status of all the stuff that's being sent back and forth. But is there a way to differentiate what belongs on the account?
Okay, hang on, getting my whiteboard, I'm gonna draw.
Oh, geez, okay.
So the short answer is, based on what you just described, I think the answer is yes, and it could be done relatively easily. The question is, does that make the most sense? So if I understand correctly, you have the the account. It's a mirror image.
Yep, I see it.
So you have the account, and we have the opportunity, and we could have one or multiple statements of work that are linked to the opportunity. Is that right?
So underneath the opportunity is actually the onboarding request object. So call it OB. And then from there, you can create the 2 SOWs. Yeah.
So that's right?
Yes.
Okay. So my understanding from what you described, so it's, you want to be able to see the SOWs at the account level. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right. Yep.
So my question is this, before I tell you how I would handle it.
Okay.
The question is it possible that under the account, you have many different or more than just this OB?
Yes.
And what I'm hearing is, so in theory,
Yeah, so we could have 15 new onboarding requests, some of them with under different opportunities too. So there could be multiple opportunities.
That's my concern.
Yep.
That's my concern. So in theory, if you wave the magic wand, you get exactly what you want. You could easily have 50 to 100 to 200 SOWs.
Yes.
All visible from within the account.
Yes.
Are you sure that's what you want?
It's not what I want.
Okay.
So I guess, because I'm thinking like we have, we have some users that will automatically go to the account to get that information because that's all they really need is they need the client SOW. And then there's going to be people that will go to that OB request because they need to see both of them. So I'm trying to figure out a way to kind of keep everybody happy and logically put things where it makes sense with the fewest number of clicks. So am I better off to do a related list on the account where they can click into like?
Well, no, you can. I don't think they'll be happy with it. So on the SOW, what you could do in order to automate this, what you could do is on the SOW, basically you have a lookup field. Yep. And the lookup field is going to be for the account. And you can actually automate it. You can create a workflow or process builder that basically, because the SOW is coming from the OB and the OB is coming from the opportunity. So each SOW is only linked to one OB.
Yes.
Right? And each OB is only linked to one opportunity, right?
Yes.
And each opportunity is only linked to one account.
Yes.
So in theory, you can create any automation, again, workflow or process builder, that as soon as an SOW is created or modified, whatever, then automatically go ahead and look at the OB that it's related to and the opportunity it's related to and the account that's referenced on the OB and populate that lookup field, which doesn't even have to be on the page layout, by the way, but to populate that lookup field to insert the account. And what that's going to do is it's going to make the SOW appear as a related list. Sorry, I'm a lefty, I gotta flip it. It's going to appear as a related list on the SOW without replicating it whatsoever.
That's what I want, yes.
Go ahead and do that. And on the account, you're going to have hundreds and hundreds of SOWs. So now the question is, maybe we need to sort that related list on the account page layout to sort it based on, like chronologically in descending order based on like the most recent ones up front. Like it's like,
yeah, I think so too. I think we'll end up, sorting it in some sort of, probably most recent first because it'll have like the employee's name on there and, things like that.
So on that related list, every attribute that's on the SOW will be completely visible. So on that related list, you can have as many columns as you need, displaying whatever data you need from the SOW so that they can sort by it to see it. But my concern is still that because you're going to have so many of them, it's going to feel unruly and people will say it's clutter.
That's if you saw our account records now, you'd probably say they are cluttered to begin with. But okay, well, that gives me at least a sense of what I can go back to them with.
Right.
Because they're fighting pretty hard against it, but I wanted to, I guess, ask the question from there. Because when you do, generate the document, it comes right off of and stays on the object in which it was generated from.
Right, which makes sense. That makes complete sense.
Okay.
You want to leave it there because otherwise it's going to be sort of disconnected, like an orphan record sitting somewhere. Like, so you want to connect it to that record.
Okay, yeah, which makes sense. Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. All right, what else? What else you guys want to talk about? Joy, I see that you're on. You've been quiet. Anything that you want to share, Joy? And I think she just dropped off. No, there she is.
No, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
It's been an interesting day.
I mean, just from the session, life in general.
Life in general got real weird over here. Like I like signed up for an absentee ballot and it didn't show up, and so I went voting today, which I was like, wow. I went wearing gloves and
like, don't breathe on me.
Yeah, and then I took my own pens and my own stylus, and they're like, here, use this community stylus. I'm like, no, I'm good. I got one. It was weird. It was really weird. And then, you know, watching my grown children play hopscotch is always interesting too.
Are we going to trade out that old Gadsden flag with "Don't tread on me" with the new one with the mask and gloves saying "Don't breathe on me"?
Breathe on me.
Don't breathe on me.
Yeah, we're definitely living through some very stressful times.
It's been interesting.
It's been a little crazy.
But I had my coffee.
There you go. Anyone have any Salesforce related anything that you guys want to talk about? We've got 10 minutes left. I'm totally cool ending it early if we need to. That's totally awesome. But
what is the most awesome thing going on in Salesforce with David at this time? What's the most awesome thing you want to share? How about that for a nice open-ended question?
That's a tough one. Because I'm such a geek, I get excited by like the silliest little nothing. Like, for example, I'll give you a perfect example. Working with nonprofits, and they don't even realize they have the nonprofit success pack, but they just don't even realize. I'll even broaden it further. They don't realize the features that are available to them that just simply haven't been touched, haven't been activated, or maybe it's on the screen, but they don't even realize how to use it, that it could save them so much time and energy and frustration. So I'll broaden it even further. When working with any organization that's using Salesforce, in particular Lightning. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to show you something to bring it home a little bit.
How can we make it faster?
How could you make it? I'll tell you one thing that you could do to make it faster.
Screens.
Simplify the damn screens.
I knew you'd say that.
Less field.
So I
want to see everything.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a minute. So we'll get back to that. So perfect example, organizations that are using Lightning, and they have no idea about some basic things.
Oh, damn, I forgot. I forgot I was on a Zoom call.
Hold on. It's great to be able to see who's giving the distracted. Anyway, so some simple things like this. All right. So right over here on every single tab you see I shouldn't say every single one, on most tabs that we have at the top of the screen, most people don't realize that when you click on the little arrow over here, there are additional features and what those features mean. So a lot of times the most simplistic thing of just showing and explaining what these features are, for example, just the fact that you can go here to click to create a new record from anywhere in Salesforce. Well, you don't have to click on the opportunities tab first and then click on new. You don't have to do that whatsoever. You could simply go over here to the tab itself and click new opportunity. That boom, you just got there. So showing things like that, showing things like when you're on any record or any report or any list view in Salesforce, and the fact that you have in the upper right-hand side over here, the favorites.
Oh, this is always amazes them.
Yes. So I feel like a magician, like every time I'm sharing it with someone, it's like these features are right here, but because everyone is burying their face down, it's like, no, I'm too busy. I don't want to learn. I know Salesforce. I've been using Salesforce for a long time. I don't need training. It's like, just give me a couple of minutes and I'll teach you some.
I amazed our new admins with a Google extension.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And we had a discussion in our group. What's the three most main Google extensions that you would recommend?
Yeah.
Well, it's obvious for me, you know.
Yeah. I'm personally, I'm not, I mean, yes, I use a lot of Google extensions, but then I realize sometimes that I have too many and that's slowing down your browser, by the way. So that's something else to think about. So another thing, I'll just call out the last one thing that like easy stuff that everyone has access to, but most people don't even realize. So let's make believe I am working on this opportunity. My boss is on my case that I need to follow up on this opportunity. And as I'm working on this, I'm focusing on it. I'm trying to figure out what is my strategy? How am I going to move this deal forward? The phone rings and the person on the other side says, "Hi, my name is George Clooney and I'm calling about," it's like, oh man, I have to capture the notes about this phone call. And during the phone call, I promised him that a few days later, I'm going to follow up with him. So there's a feature, everyone has access to this, that most people don't even know that it's there. So I don't want to move off of this screen, but I want to capture the fact that I just had this phone call with George Clooney. And I want to capture the fact that I just promised him that a few days from now, I'll follow up with whatever it is that I promised. All I have to do is go over here on the top of the screen and click on log a call, and it pops up like a piece of toast. And I can go here and say, you know, spoke with him about whatever. And I can go here and I can associate George Clooney. And I can go ahead and I can save it. I just created that log a call record without moving off of this opportunity screen. Now all I have to do is the same thing of creating that new task. I can assign it to myself. I can assign it to someone else, associating it with George Clooney. Here, you know, follow up with whatever. And I can go ahead and I can give it a due date of, let's say, the end of the week. I can go ahead and associate it to George Clooney one more time. I can hit save. I just created 2 records without moving off of the screen. Like these things, when I'm able to introduce these features without even doing any configuration, introduce these features to organizations, it blows their minds. And it's honestly, it's scratching the surface. It's really scratching the surface. So Jim, to answer your question, it's doing things like that, which are the most basic and simple things. I love doing that. Absolutely love doing that. To answer the other question, the other topic, let's talk about simplicity for a minute. And a lot of people are frustrated with the performance within Salesforce and they blame it on Lightning. And I'm not at all going to say that Lightning is super fast. It's not. It does. The pages do load slower than Classic because Classic by definition was designed with a much more rudimentary HTML where things go fast, as Joy is demonstrating. But Lightning is a separate component that might have different functionality. It might be pulling different data. However, anyway, so yes, Salesforce users, as well as leaders within organizations, will often say, I want to see everything. When I go on the homepage, I want to see everything. I want to see everything that anyone has done anywhere in the organization in Salesforce. And I turn to them and I say, I have a question. When you log on to Netflix, when you log on to Amazon, do you see everything? And even if you wanted, even if you had control of seeing absolutely everything, let's make believe for a minute that you had control of Amazon, of what you see on the homepage, and you could see every single product and every description and every rating of every product and every product you've ever purchased and every product that they have, that you could actually see that. Make believe, you wave the magic wand. Would that make any sense? Would that help you in any way? No. No. So you need to push back. You need to tell people, no, you're not getting that. This is not Excel. You want Excel? Go use Excel, where you can see everything. Because by the way, even when they do see everything, they then collapse. They hide rows, they hide columns, they freeze tables, they freeze sections within Excel just to see the things that are most important to them. They break stuff up into different tabs because nobody can process all of that information. So now, let's push that even further. Even when you have different configuration within Salesforce, one of the beautiful things of Lightning is that in Lightning components, let me go here and I'm going to go into edit page. Hang on one second. I'm having trouble seeing because the camera's in the way. So once I go into edit page over here, let's say I have this particular Come on, keep up. Let's say once I have this particular lightning component, this rich text component in the upper right-hand side of the screen, and maybe it's only relevant for certain users within my organization. All I have to do is go over here, native out-of-the-box functionality, set parameters over here, and determine who should be able to see it based on the, let's say, the user role or the user profile, whatever it is, to be able to control who should be able to see it. So this way, the end users only see the things that are really appropriate for them when they're logged into Salesforce. So that holds true not only on the home page, on all record pages also. So the admins have so much capability, so much flexibility for simplifying things in Salesforce. Just need to tap into them. So anyway, I hope that answers that question. I see that there's a whole lot more in chat. We are at the top of the hour and I do have to run. I actually have another meeting starting at the top of the hour. I want to thank all of you for joining. I've been recording this. I'm actually going to post the recording of this session on YouTube and I'll send it out to all of you so that you have the link to it. Thank you for joining. Have an awesome day. Stay safe. Wash your hands.
Thanks, David.
All right. Talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye all.
Thank you again.
My pleasure.